No tinfoil base today, that's how you know I'm really going balls to the wall. We're taking it back to the preschool days by just rolling out our clay into a log, actual literal bug not included and should never be included. Don't know how that even got there, but before you ask, yes, I did pick it out of the clay because I'm not disturbed. As you could surmise from the title, it's that time of year for me to make a caterpillar since it seems I've created a positive trend of making at least one a year, since there's always something with them, and I love that. The position I'm forming this guy in is actually from this absolutely phenomenal photo I saw of a regular caterpillar. Although caterpillars are valid and precious and deserve to be loved, that caterpillar's design is too simple for me. A video of me making that pillar baby would be about 5 minutes long, so I went with a crazier looking fellow from my bug list that would really force me to put my back into it. That would be the old world swallowtail caterpillar. I had to go ahead and zoink this fur coat off for two reasons. One, they were too skinny, so I would have ended up having to make way too many to go all the way down the length of the caterpillar's body, even though when I counted, this guy is only supposed to have around 13 segments, and numero dos, the top 4 or so segments closest to the head are actually chubby as hell. The balls are important. I rolled them up into balls instead of going fist first into rolling them out so that I can ensure that they're all the same size. That way, when I roll them out into log form, I won't have some that are randomly thicker than others, which I highly recommend personally. And now these balls are slightly smaller because I'm going to roll them out into slightly skinnier uniform chunks since, as I said 30 seconds ago, the segments towards the top are feeling the effects of all of those late night leaf runs more than the segments towards the bottom. I did end up having to make multiple passes of this bottom half though. As you can see, I realized that I had to make them canonical so that they would actually wrap around the bend. Then I came to the realization that these ones will actually end up looking just as chubby, if not chubbier than the top half, which it wasn't all that serious to me anyway. That was fine. Here you can really see what I mean by conical shape if you didn't catch it the first time. Going around this bend was a bit of a doozy, not a moderate doozy, just a slight one. I just had to do a little bit of chopping at the tip top of the cone there to make room, and once I got the hang of it, I was chilling. Then I just wrapped this last piece around. It had to be tapered at the ends to make an almost belly roll effect. Then I took a small piece and made it regularly triangular just to fill those gaps. The bottom half doesn't look right. It literally doesn't sit right, and that's because it's not tubular, but my plan was always to cut the bottom at an angle so that it would look rounded in the way it's supposed to. I chopped at it a bit haggardly, but that's fine. I just softened it out with my finger before redefining the edges just a tad. From there, I can smooth out and Botox the seams of the top rows in much of the same way by just using my tool, then fingers, then redefining the edges again. This was a good break point to double check that an incense holder, I'm using a wooden skewer from the kitchen, would actually fit nicely in the middle there, while the skewer is still there. I begin positioning the shoulders, I guess you could call them shoulders, of the caterpillar. I press them down, but you might notice I don't go all the way around when I weld it, because it's not worth potentially distorting the form I've created so far, just so that I can weld it down in those hard to reach areas in between each shoulder that no one is really going to notice anyway. So I weld it about 90% of the way. I hope that made sense, but anywho, I'm making little sockets here for the arms, and here I'm making an embarrassing attempt at a biblically accurate caterpillar mouth. The motif was a caterpillar mouth in the position that it would be in if it were actually eating something long and skinny like a leaf stem or something. But no matter what I do, it just ended up looking more and more like a puckered butthole, which, as you can guess, is not ideal. At that point, I was obviously in denial about this puckered butthole thing, so I thought I could mask it by giving it that silly meme face it had in the original reference photo, and also by just moving it all together and making the eyes, which I then decided also didn't work because it made him look like a wise old man instead of a city little goober. So I moved the eyes down a bit, then I finally traded in the butthole mouth for this, cute little smile thing. So I baked it for the first time, and now I'm adding holes for the wiring, which would be a mild mistake that I will probably make many times in the future. Ideally, what you'd want to do, as I've said before in at least one other video, is add the wiring to the clay before it bakes, but alas, here the skewer has made a reappearance so that we can make sure the hands actually grab it in a way that's reliable, but also doesn't obscure the face too much. And I made him wave because he's such a little kitty patootie little baby. Then I fixed the bottom before baking a second time, but lo and behold, I'm a bozo and the wires caused the clay to crack. I don't really care when it cracks because it's such an easy fix, but still. I created the horns separately because I want to give another crack at the translucent clay, but still didn't come out the way I was anticipating, so we can give the translucent clay to Goodwill or something. Woo! Onto the paint job. As I mentioned earlier, I went with the old world Swallowtail caterpillar because it has a chubby, teletubby ass form, but also because I love the bright colors and patterns here. I had to go out and buy this specific shade of lime green just for this. I love trying new things, so I don't care. You all know I also love a good gradient, which this little goober has here, so I achieved this by blending out the lime green into a very whited out teal blue into pure white. I blocked off this black area, which looks tough getting into the crease, but it really wasn't. From there, I alternate all over the front to finish it up before I dive into the patterns on the back, because in a bit of a backwards method, I prefer to get the white out of the way before I do the black parts or any heavily colored parts, which actually isn't that weird when you consider I'm simply doing the background to foreground method. I block out the face and even add in the face gradient off camera for some reason. Then I add the black to the caterpillar paws before moving on to the head prongs. Really, what I'm doing is blocking out all of the places that require orange because my orange is pretty thin. Although I love this color, so I'm working with her since she's working with me. I don't mind building up the layers. Caterpillars, like many other bugs, but especially caterpillars, have a very organic and ironically very painted on natural design. I wanted to embody that with the sponge, although I did not like the sponge. But ultimately I moved back to using a paintbrush, which I used to freeform it by just plopping the black on and quite literally going with the flow. Last thing, before I go, I need to mention that the prongs springing from this baby's head area aren't antennae, they're actually osmeterium, aka retractable protrusions that the old world swallowtail caterpillar pop out as a defense mechanism since they shoot out some real foul, stinky dumpster smells to ward off predators. Except birds, which is an oversight. I think only a very small amount of caterpillars have this, but I can tell you I'm not an entomologist, but I'm pretty sure this is what this guy specifically is known for. I think it's just a swallowtail thing, which, good for them. As you can see, I'm trying something just a little bit new. The incense holder idea actually came to me after I completely finished this caterpillar, which is fine. I think it's just a cool idea. I actually don't think I'm ever going to use it as an incense holder, only because I'm afraid of the ash staining it. But in theory, I think this would be a really cool incense holder. So if anyone in the comments has any ideas of like a finish for it that would not be stained by the ash, I would greatly appreciate it. And with that, we are finished with this little guy. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, you might as well like, you might as well subscribe, and you might as well comment a name for this little guy. I greatly appreciate you all. Thank you so much for watching. Where I'm only 20 subs away from 500, so please help me get there. And yeah, see you for the next one. Bye.